This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Waid, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
And you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
Welcome to this spontaneous, sort of, Krypton Report review of Joker. Now, we waited a little bit before we reviewed this movie. Several reasons. One, just time. When the film came out, I had a death in the family, so that kind of put things off. Two, where I live is basically right now they celebrate and worship the Great Pumpkin. That's all they care about in this town. And three, we all kind of want to test the film, think about it, and both of my esteemed colleagues here got to see it a second time. I did not. So that way we can get more perspective on it, because it is a movie you kind of digest and, you have your first thoughts, and then you kind of think about it and roll with it for a little bit. So we kind of wanted to give it some time and then get a chance to talk about it. But this is the culmination, fellas, of our summer movie series. Yes, I can speak with big words. Our summer movie series that we kicked off, where we've been watching every cinematic version of the Joker, and we did commentary tracks on our YouTube page. The only one that doesn't exist is for Suicide Squad, and James and I addressed that in our last episode because that was a technical nightmare. Thanks to children. Yes. Brian, don't make me disconnect you from here, man. Disc skips, microphones cutting out, internet connections. James and I have decided that we actually will revisit that film in a discussion when it comes time for the sequel sort of reboot.
I just call it a sequel because it's got so many returning actors. I mean,
that's what I call it.
Just another iteration of the Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad Part 2.
We're going to talk about 2019's movie Joker. Now, first of all, think about the title. It's just Joker. Okay? As a name. Because Junia and I discussed this about the premise of the being definitive. And she brought up the idea that he is not the Joker yet because he hasn't created the idea of the Joker as a title. He's just a Joker or a Joker.
Why isn't your wife on this right now? Because that's a smart woman there.
She is a smart woman, and I'll be bringing up her critiques as we go along, but like I just said, my town worships the pumpkin, and she's there working, and she will be working probably for another hour or so. So,
oh, lovely.
Thus is life. But because I was thinking, because every time you, in comics and stuff, you always hear, the Joker did this, the Joker. Sometimes we hear the Batman, but it's always awkward. It's more like Batman. But we don't as often hear Joker. I was trying to think back. I remember them calling him Joker in Suicide Squad. I don't remember them saying Joker in The Dark Knight. I always remember hearing saying the Joker. So it's just kind of an idea of what that means. All right. So this movie is directed by Todd Phillips, which I think is, is an interesting choice. First of all, because this movie is about comedy and what we think is comical or what comedy is or isn't, and one man's perspective on life and comedy. And the idea of a comedy-known director trying to flip the script and do a serious movie, I think it's kind of appropriate.
Well, like Joaquin Phoenix tells Murray that
there you go.
Murray that comedy is subjective.
I was
Right.
thinking that too. Yeah.
There's some things in this movie you can laugh at, and some things in this movie that when you do, somebody in the theater kind of looks at you through the corner of their eye like, you shouldn't be laughing at that.
That's why we go at 2:00 on a Tuesday. When it's you and your wife, and there were like maybe 2 other people in there. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Todd Phillips, most famously for me, was known as the director of Old School, which is one of my favorite comedies. It's my favorite Will Ferrell movie because it's him and it was the lead spot was shared by 3 people. It was like a trinity of comedy. Vince Vaughn, Will Ferrell, and Luke Wilson. And then, of course, Todd Phillips later did the Hangover trilogy that everyone knows of. Also did Road Trip, Due Date, Starsky and Hutch.
Oh yeah, you did do Starsky.
So the only movie I saw of his all the way through is Road Trip. I think it's hilarious. I've seen most of Old School. I've never seen any of the Hangover movies, and I've only seen parts of Starsky and Hutch on TV.
Release the Fury, Mitch. Come on, Mitch. Release the Fury.
Wow.
The only film of his that I have not
Well,
seen.
the Hangover is what?
War Dogs.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that
was
either.
kind of his break from comedy. But I think it's an interesting choice.
Didn't Todd say that he's not going to do comedy anymore?
Right, and that's kind of the point. He said that just the world that we live in, he feels that comedy, and I'm paraphrasing, so no one take me, nothing's funny anymore. It's hard to do anything funny because everybody is so, politically correct or whatever, that you can't be funny anymore. And I think that's kind of interesting.
Everything's offensive.
Yeah, with the subject matter of this movie about comedy being subjective. This was, first of all, let's look at the film, though, okay. It is a comic-based film, okay? But there's no DC acknowledgement till the end credits.
Yeah, you don't see the DC logo until actually the credits finish.
And, okay, so we have that DC Properties opening now, okay, that you see on Titans, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the new Teen Titans vs. Teen Titans Go cartoon. It's over all their products now when it comes out, saying this is DC. That's their new logo. This is not part of that. I say that to set up the idea that partially this film is what I had feared from the beginning, with the idea that this movie is just Joker-y enough to say it's a Joker movie, but it doesn't have to be. It's still a story that they can be like, oh, it has no comic ties. It doesn't have to be tied into anything. It doesn't have to be the Joker. We sprinkle just enough in there to sell it without having to acknowledge what it is. And if you look at this film and you take out terms like Arkham, Gotham, Wayne, what do you have?
You have 1981 New York.
You have
with the garbage strike and a person with mental illness having the world step on him over and over and over again.
And I think critic. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I think if you take out Gotham, you take out Wayne, you take Arkham, all you have are negative thoughts.
All we have are negative thoughts, Brian.
And I mean, if you take out those 3 things and you take out, Joker, you mostly just have a movie about a guy that just had mental illness and society gave up on him.
Even with Joker, like I said, it's Joker, not the Joker. We don't have the definitive title. So, I mean, if you think back to, oh crap, my brain, hold on. Oh my God, Full Metal Jacket. one of the characters named Joker. Okay? So, and the same principle, well, I want to get all this out before we dive into the film. Same principle concept with his makeup. It's just the Joker enough, but it's still clown. You know, where you could look at it like, oh, man, that's a clown. Looks kind of like the Joker. But it's just right there enough where you can say it's the Joker, or you can say it's not. It's just a man who was a clown. And I'll bring all this back around as we talk about the film, but just I want to get some of this framework out. Is it's just enough in to say that it is this, but it's out enough to say that, you know, it's not. And it's like he had a story he wanted to tell about a mentally ill person's, and it's like, man, how can we tell this story? We'll call it the Joker or Joker, and then boom, you have immediately a built-in audience.
Brand recognition.
Exactly. I mean, Zaki San, one of my favorite critics to listen to at the Movie Film Podcast, he said it, and I give credit where credit's due, that you wouldn't have saw this movie if it was called Arthur or Fleck or Arthur Fleck. You would have just been like, oh, okay, looks like a good performance of Joaquin. I might rent it. You know, I might see it, wait till it hits net.
That's it right there. That's it right there.
But as soon as you saw Joker, you're like, oh, I got to see this. So that's going to take it. That's just kind of the frame working out of the mind. Does anybody have a quick summary they want to share about the film? I know, James, we had touched on summary, but I didn't know if we'd ever hammered it out.
Yeah, no, I had. I hadn't gotten a chance to do that. I'm on call this week, so.
Yeah. So if James disappears in the middle of our discussion, because he had to go to work.
Unfortunately.
So the film centers on the main character of Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck is literally in every scene of this film, played by Joaquin Phoenix, and it's about him dealing with his mental illness and basically where that takes him.
His descent into madness. Like, there's literally the one scene of the movie that if he didn't show up in the background, it would have been the only scene in the movie that he wasn't in. But he actually inserts himself in to see, so it's not even an objective an objective view of the facts that he's reading in the folder. Like, it's that flashback scene with his mother. He even inserts himself in the back, like looking at what's going on. So he is in every single scene of the movie.
All right, so here we go.
Even that is not an objective fact in this movie that is completely obscured by ambiguity.
Before we jump into a spoiler detail breakdown, I want you to tell me, did you like it, love it, or hate it? And James, go first.
Well, I loved it. It was a great movie. It is not a feel-good movie, but it is a great movie. Well acted, great performance, great cinematography, amazing score, good music, set design, costume design. The movie was great.
All right, Brian.
Hated it. No, this movie.
Brian hates everything.
I do. No, I felt this movie was a masterpiece. For the message that it was trying to get out about mental illness, and all it takes is one bad day. I felt it sold it in every way it could, and I thought this movie was amazing. I saw it twice, and I have no fault with it, and I hate everything.
All right, so I'm going to cheat, kind of. I like it as a Joker movie, but I love it as a film if we don't have the elements of the Joker. And we'll talk about that. So here we go. Jumping in, spoilers, discussion. We'll start. The score is amazing.
Yes.
It is like, it seems like Stephen King and Danny Elfman got together and had a child, and that's his music. Like, it is hauntingly beautiful. The violins are just, the violins and the cello set like a perfect, like, I listened to the score before I saw the movie, because I kept hearing people talk about the score, and just sitting here listening to it, I was like, if I didn't know that where this was from, I immediately would think it was like kind of like a horror film, Halloweenish, like great movie for fall. And it made me more interested in the movie of finding out where this music is.
Speaking of, that's funny you say you're listening to the score before you see the movie and how it makes you feel. If it's to be believed, the composer had the score completed before the movie was filmed. And they played the score on set, and it helped Joaquin get into the mindset of what he was doing. So in the movie, there is a scene, say like the scene where he's dancing on the stairs. We've all seen that in the trailers. He's dancing, he hears the music in his head. It shows the cops up on the top of the stairs. It's just wind blowing. There is no music. Everything he sees and hears, so it can be believed that the music that he hears throughout the entire movie when he's dancing or anything, all the music can be coming like literally in his head that he is hearing. So he has the score going on, so it's kind of like, playing it on set for him. It's kind of like that music is in Arthur's head.
Some of the music reminded me of like an old silent film, but like the music saddened. Like just that, an old movie, like a old, Chaplin who's referenced this. But then this is slowed down to, and it's like this haunting tone to it.
It was yesterday, Tyler and I were driving with Solo and Selah, and Tyler popped on the score, and Solomon's like, "Hey, Dad, is this the Wolfman score?" And from the Anthony Hopkins and that one.
So it's Danny Elfman music.
Yes, and our minds were blown because not only is this kid just a genius, but when listening to the score, like I felt it was like listening to old Universal horror movies, like that really old school horror
like Lon
movie.
Chaney, Phantom of the Opera, like The Man Who Laughs kind of thing.
Which that movie is so hard to find, but
I go pick it up from the library tomorrow.
Well, you're gonna give it to me. I'll return it to the library for you.
I love the library. James and I have caught hats tonight. He knows. I preach, people, check out your local libraries for stuff. It's awesome.
No, I won't disagree. But I'm with James on this. Like, this score was played like it was all in his head. And how he dances, and that's like where he's in his groove. That's where he's at his happiness. Like, that's the only time he's not feeling a negative thought is when he's dancing. And that's all in his head. I got that too. I totally agree with you.
James's girlfriend's calling him.
No, that was actually Capes and Lunatics notification on YouTube.
No, I trust you. I'm not calling you.
Plus, mine's silent, so dang it, Phil.
I turned it all the way down, but I didn't turn it on silent.
Phil trying to take up our time. Like, we're live, so you decided to go live, man.
Right. Come on, Phil. Phil's always live.
Love you, Phil.
Phil's never not live. So
I know. I don't know when he's live or just a repeat. Like, I think he just plugged. He gets home.
yeah.
So the score, like, what did you think about some of the songs that were used that were not scores? The controversial Gary Glitter song. First of all, I didn't even know that song came out in the 80s. I didn't even know that was who Gary Glitter was. I thought that was.
Secondly, when that song was popular, that controversy wasn't around.
Right. And my
so
thing
it
was,
fits the time.
I heard it in the 90s at sporting events. That's all I think about with that song. So
they phased it out.
I had no idea when, like, that was the song people were having problems with. And then when it starts playing in the movie, I was like, this is awkward. Like, isn't this a 90s song about sports? But I guess not.
What song are you talking about, man?
When he comes walking out and it's, and he walks down, isn't it? He starts to walk outside and everything. And it's just look it up. You can't really sing it.
Okay, let me go Google that right now.
We're on the internet.
Right. Just click over to the next tab. Grab your iPad.
Hey.
Don't mind
Hey.
This is not sponsored by Apple, but we will take it.
Yeah.
Product placement.
My whole room is product placement, James.
Right.
I got Stranger Things back here. That Netflix send us money.
Right.
Sorry,
this is just
other than that. I thought the music was great. I think Joaquin is amazing as Arthur. I think just highlighting stuff. I wish things had moved quicker. I wish we would have gotten him as quote unquote Joker sooner. Like maybe after he murdered those people, he just like that was his embrace. Spiral. And then that from there, it was just like Bonnie kept going. Like after that scene was kind of more like one more scene is him as Arthur, and then he decides to like color the hair and go out and really made that the culmination. So the second half of the film is more that because I feel like it's all Arthur till the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's like the first act pretty much ends on him killing the guys and running in fear, and then lightening up. Like we were talking about the dancing. Every time he starts dancing and everything, that's like his peace coming out because he's never had peace. He's never been happy. So when he does something like that he finds funny, that lifts him up in his own way, that's when it comes out. And then you see that, and then it goes back. So the first act ends with that, and you think that he's kind of embracing that feeling, but then it goes back to because they show after that, then he goes to Zazie Beetz' apartment. Sophia, there we go. Goes to Zazie Beetz' apartment and starts making out with her, and then the date and everything, his stand-up, kind of think that things are going his way, and then other things start happening to him and it brings him back down. So act 1 culminates and things start to go up, and then act 2 starts dropping again before it culminates again in him doing what he does to Randall in his apartment, and then you pretty much kick off the final act.
Now, do you think that Randall's okay? Do you think Randall made it?
No. Randall was the most brutal death in the movie. I don't think he made it. He stabbed him in the throat with a pair of scissors, stabbed him in the eye, and repeatedly bashed his head into the wall. with blood splatter everywhere.
He could be okay.
This isn't Monty Python, man. All right, so
wait,
tis a flesh wound.
So I gotta say though, after watching this twice, I still was so terrified. Like, I was seriously terrified in that scene. But
let me ask you two
maybe
questions.
I'll jump ahead there.
For Gary?
No. One, do you think this movie is as dark as people have talked it about?
Heck no.
I think the themes are dark. I think the themes are almost as dark as people talk about.
I think,
but the movie is not.
Right, and that's how I feel. It's a subject matter that sometimes people don't want to talk about, and I think that
very sensitive and difficult subject to broach. Yeah,
people don't want to think that the guy down the street that talks to himself, or that homeless person that they walk past every day, could be somebody that could just lose it. And people don't want to think that if they have a bad day, that they could lose it, and they could make this switch. People don't want to think about that, and that's why that uneasiness is so dark, or whatever you want to say.
My other thought is, do you think Arthur is too much of a sympathetic character? Do you feel that they made him too much of an someone that because we as the audience will always connect with the narrator, good or bad? Do you feel like, watching this, you're like, oh man, I understand him, and like I don't agree with what he did, but I felt like he was a little too sympathetic. And yes. I'll go back to one movie that I feel like I talked about. Oh, I want to throw this out there. I knew that everyone was referencing Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy from Scorsese. I purposely did not watch them. I've seen Taxi Driver years ago, and I purposely did not watch either of those because I didn't want to think about those films while watching.
I want to watch them now that after I've seen Joker.
Right. I'm up for watching them now. But one movie I feel like tonally wise, Jesus, that kind of made me think. Remember the movie Monster with Charlize Theron and Christina Ricci?
Mm-hmm. Never saw it.
It's it's a real person. But the idea is that she's
based on true events.
Right. She's been beaten, brutally beaten, raped, tortured by men, and becomes a serial killer. And she's our main character. And even though she's a horrible monster, you still feel kind of sympathetic for her because of what she's been through. And I feel like this film is kind of in a similar situation, but nobody's brought that movie up for discussion. I feel like
there is a line there where the victim who stands up for themselves, are they guilty or no? A victim who stands up for themselves in a self-defense matter, that's not crossing the line. You know what I mean? To most people, that's probably not crossing the line. But the victim who uses those experiences and those horrors in their life to drive more violent behavior and continuous violent behavior, they've crossed the line. So there is a point in the movie where he's sympathetic, he's defending himself, and it's self-defense. And even into the third act, when he's on the show with Murray and he's discussing the guys who were jumping him on the train, people only care about them because, they were rich and because Thomas Wayne said something and because they, in fact, seem like victims when the act was in self-defense. But nobody knows that. But if it was the other way around and he was left dead on the subway, he'd just be another blip in the back of the newspaper and nobody would care. So there is a amount of sympathy to his character all the way through the end, but you also know that he has crossed the line. He uses all that pain in his life to try and justify multiple acts of violence. And that crosses the line. It's not self-defense where he's getting jumped and beaten down by three guys.
I felt that was a very good callback to Ledger talking to Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight. A bus full of soldiers blows up, no one bats an eye, but a little old lady gets shot, and everybody loses their minds because it's all part of the plan. And I thought that was a nice twist on that in this Joker movie, that we don't care about the homeless people. We don't care about people with mental illness, really. They're just other people. So when a mentally ill person does something or whatnot, we don't really care. But if something happens in our society to a celebrity, or some celebrity mentions something about anything, then we care. And I think that, this movie did make Joker or Arthur too sympathetic. All of the people that he killed, yes. There was a reason to it. I mean, he kills the guy who works with Randall in the most brutal way because Randall gave him the gun and he lost his job, and Randall lied about it, and he killed the people on the subway, the Wayne guys, because they were beating on him and they were bugging that woman. And there's only one death that, if it is a death, if he killed Sophie, which you never really know.
We'll get there. Don't. We'll get there.
Right.
I want to compartmentalize. I want to say that one.
Well, just along the lines of that, part of the commentary of this is people care about who the media tells you to care about. So that's actually, even though this is set back 30 years ago, that's actually a thing. That's actually something saying about the media today, that the public is going to care about who the media tells them to care about. The media tells them to care about these three guys who were, harassing this woman and beating on Arthur. Nobody was there to see it. The media tells you to care about them. The public cares about them.
So let's look at Arthur for a second. He's our narrator, and we learn in the film he's an unreliable narrator. So I want you to think about that in the context of the Joker. Think about The Killing Joke, okay, where we are learning the Joker's backstory through him as our unreliable narrator, okay? So I want that in your mind as we move forward. Arthur's psychosis. We know he's seeing a social worker, is it? She doesn't say doctor, doesn't say psychiatrist, doesn't say psychologist.
Social worker named Deborah Kane.
Right, and that just made me mad. Come on, we don't need that many Kane, okay? With it. I also taught my kids today, we were watching Side Story about Kane, that Bob Kane was not a good person. But that's just another story. So we meet him with her, and we're told, that he has a journal. He's journaling. He talks, about how does it feel someone to talk to. It seems like he's on a very minimal, almost, what's the word? Government-provided healthcare benefit, because it doesn't seem like they're actually really putting work. They're giving him pills. He asks for more medication on how he feels. I think that's a big deal because we learn that he has this card that talks about his condition, that he laughs uncontrollably, painfully at times, that things are inappropriate or whatever. We see examples.
Nervous, uncomfortable, whatever.
So examples of this. Now, who diagnosed him with this? What's the name of this condition? Hold on. Because 2, we learn, not jumping ahead too much, that he was brutally abused as a child and had head trauma. So the condition and his mental state comes from the head trauma he suffered as a child. Now, I'm pointing this out because this is an awesome fact. This comes from Jamie Drewley from Holy Batcast. And this is something I heard him say that I kind of been thinking. I told this to Bryan yesterday. Like I said, credit given where credit's due. His mother supposedly knows of Arthur's condition. Okay? Now, I've only seen the film once. Does he ever laugh around his mom? Just think. Hold on. Just think.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to you. And Jamie pointed this out that he's watching the news with his mom after the killings, and they say that the men on the subway were killed. He laughs, and she says, that's not something you should laugh about. But she knows his condition, so she would know he would laugh at uncomfortable things. Now, think back. Did he ever laugh around his mom?
So I had heard that comment. I had heard that comment. That is the only time I recall him laughing around his mother. They do laugh and smile together because he's comfortable with his mother. He takes care of his mother.
Awkwardly.
But, well, she can't take care of herself, so he has to do what he has to do for her. Get her food, bathe her. He has to take care of her. You do what you have to do. If you had to, you would.
Yeah. I have a brother.
So, and I heard that, and so I've seen the movie. I listened to just about every podcast review that I could listen to, and then I saw the movie again. So there was a lot to look at and look for. I had heard Jamie say that. So during the news report, they talk about the people who died, and then they start talking, and then Thomas Wayne starts talking, and Arthur starts kicking his feet. He starts tapping his feet. He gets very anxious about what's going on. And it's not until the end of Thomas Wayne's speech, after he calls everybody a clown and after he says what person would do this, a person who hides their face, and then Arthur chuckles. So Arthur does not laugh at the fact that these people are dead. He laughs after the fact, after Thomas Wayne comments on him, comments on his, on his actions.
All right. That's cool. Like I said, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, so there is something to say about it. She does turn to him and say, that's not something you should laugh about. I mean, the story is about the death of these three guys. But he doesn't start laughing at the death of these three guys. He laughs in derision of what Thomas Wayne has to say.
Well, I'll go and say this. So my stepfather has a horrible stutter. I mean, it's horrible. And every time he talks to me, he can't finish his story. His story goes on forever because he stutters so much, because I make him nervous. And because I don't know why I make him nervous. You know me all my whole life. But when I call my mom and she's talking to him in the background, he doesn't stutter at all. Because I don't know, he's with my mom, he's so comfortable. So I think it could just be that when he's with his mom Penny, that this condition is pretty much kind of not really there because he's so comfortable with her. What does he have to be afraid of with her? So he doesn't have that awkward laugh. That's his world. His mom's his world. And she said, don't laugh at that. because it wasn't the normal conditional laugh, possibly. Like, she knew that he's just, he's laughing at people being dead. It's not the uncontrollable one. Because when he laughs in his conditional laugh, there's so much pain in him. Like, Joaquin played that so well. You see that pain in his eyes, like that tears dripping down of him being in so much pain. And as the movie goes on, and he gets in these violence, and he gets to kind of be his own man more, it doesn't hurt anymore when he laughs. And the laugh kind of just goes away. So, could be just that.
Interesting. All right. So that's kind of where we are with Arthur. So let's take a moment and start at the beginning of the movie. Did you guys notice? I kind of missed this. When he's laying there, after getting hit in the face with a sign and jumped, when he's laying there and like the Joker comes up and squirts his flower.
Yes, I noticed it the second time.
I've seen that.
I noticed the second time.
Spills on the ground.
It's
funny. Actually, I noticed it the first time. I didn't even recognize it the second time.
It's kind of just showing his pussies of just like, it's funny. So we learn
to him that's a joke.
So we learn Arthur has a twisted sense of humor. He doesn't understand comedy. We see that in the example of when he's laughing at the setup for jokes and not the punchline. Like, everyone's like listening. He laughs. Then he's writing stuff down in his journal, which is also, he calls his joke book and his journal. And did you notice
filled with pornography?
He switches hands from right to left when he's writing at times.
Wait, what?
No, I didn't notice that.
Sometimes he's writing with his right hand. Sometimes he's writing with his left hand.
Okay. So what does he write with his right? What does he write with his left?
I don't remember. I just remember seeing it. That's what I'm saying. I've only seen it once. I have all these thoughts. I'd like to go back and watch it again. So it would be interesting to go back and see if there's like a definitive change of after he becomes Joker, if he goes left-handed. So one of the big, I guess, reviews of the film was a lot of stuff that's in Arthur's head. We see that the first setup is when he's on the Murray Franklin show with his mom. What we presume is a flashback of him in the audience, but then Murray like welcomes him, brings him down like a son, and then it cuts back to him and his mom sitting watching the show.
Yeah, first time I saw that, I wasn't sure if that was like a flashback or like a quick flash forward, like he's watching the show, and then all of a sudden, like shortly, he's in the audience at the show until he's brought down and told that, he would trade all of it for a son like him. I was like, okay, that doesn't seem real. And then it cuts back to him in the bed with his mother watching TV. I was like, okay, yeah, that wasn't real.
Yeah, I really thought it was a flashback too. Until the hug happened, I thought it was a flashback, and I thought like maybe, if this was a flashback, maybe that's why Murray had that clip of him doing stand up, because he was like watching him, to see his act, like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So, and then the second big thing that we learned that's in Arthur's head is his relationship with Sophia. Was this a big twist for you guys? Did you see it coming?
I saw that coming. I saw that coming.
You saw it coming that it wasn't real?
Yeah, and I usually don't pick up on that stuff, but what made me think it was fake is because, like, he meets her in the elevator, she does this like type thing. He does it back. It's really awkward. She just kind of like smiles, whatever, and then all of a sudden he just walks into her apartment and just makes out with her, and like this is a relationship. There was no like conversation, like, "Hey, maybe we have something going on here." It's just it was so weird.
The scene that follows is when she goes, "Were you following me today?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's confident and he's cool. He's not laughing. But my trigger is always when you have a character who's not interacting with anybody else.
Right.
She's interacting with, in every scene, she interacts with Arthur. She has no dialogue for the most part. Like, it's very minimal. She's not interacting with anybody else. So I had my suspicions, and then she walks.
Yeah, that's tell.
Go ahead, James.
Well, you know, there's the elevator scene, and then the stalking scene, and then she comes to the door. You know, that could possibly just be believed as she's, you know, she's that type of person. You know what I mean? He lives down the hall from her. She confronted him about the stalking and then just kind of like went with it. You know what I mean? Like, you could believe that perhaps she is, you know, that type of person. I mean, with just the history of like
the city,
Joker,
and the town.
the city and Joker history with women, namely Harley. But, and then when he goes to make out with her in the apartment is after he's killed the people and he's actually got confidence in himself. He ran in fear and then he embraced what he did. He, you know, he felt stronger and everything. And then that's kind of where the movie starts to go up a little bit from his point of view. You know, it's his point of view. He's in a euphoric state from killing those people. So now he believes, you know, so the confidence makes it believable that he would go to this apartment. Now the relationship just evolving right there. It's kind of montage like, because they show them in a couple of scenes together, you know, so it's like quick budding relationship. So it can be believed that, you know, maybe it was, or it could have been real, but they reveal that it's not. So I didn't see it coming, but I wasn't surprised when they revealed that it wasn't real.
Well, I didn't want it to be real.
What?
If it was real, I didn't want it to be real. That plays more into that sympathetic character. I want Arthur to be someone that you kind of get, like, why he hates everything, why he turns, and even at the end, like, I get why he does, but I don't feel it's so. I'm holding this thought. All right, go, Brian. I'm holding this thought for a question.
Hold on to it. The big red flag to me, though, is like his mom's his life. And if he was dating this chick, like his mom would have been like, "Hey, you got Sophie now? That's awesome." You know, she would have been some happy for him. And when he goes and sees the social worker, you know, there would have been probably some or there would have been like some conversation about her and him. But the main red flag is his mom. And the other thing is when I guess the only bothersome thing about this movie to me, maybe, because I have to pick something, is I still don't feel it was a Joker movie. I feel it was just
hold that thought. Hold that thought.
But hold on. When a villain becomes sympathetic, they're no longer a villain. And go.
So,
well, you say a villain and being sympathetic, the movie is from his point of view. So he would want to feel sympathetic.
I know.
You know what I mean? They're trying to paint it from his perspective that he's sympathetic.
All right.
I know
exactly what James is saying. So
But-
let's jump to the end real quick. So we get the end. We'll talk about the TV scene here in a moment, but we get this cutaway of Arthur in what we presume is Arkham, and it's set up almost where you could say the whole film was in his head, or that he's telling this story, his story, to his doctor. Okay, and if he's telling his story to his doctor, he's going to be the hero of his own story. So you know, so that goes back to,
or the sympathetic character of his own story.
right? Exactly. So if I'm telling you a story, James, me and Junia get in a fight. Okay, you're not there, but when I tell you,
You're the victim.
I'm the victim, and I'm going to say it in ways that you're on my side.
Mm-hmm.
Then Junia talks to Bryan, tells it her thing, and Brian's like, Tyler's a piece of crap.
Because
Okay.
Tyler is a piece of crap.
So if you think about it in that sense, that Arthur is telling us this story, he's going to paint himself a better man, a better person. But at the same time, he has to still tell us the true, the events that the doctor knows happened, but he's going to put it in his framework. Now, his framework is obscured.
Unreliable.
So we have these build-up scenes, okay? And we're going to jump back for a second and talk about, real quick, the Waynes. Let's get this knocked out before we get into the third act kind of deconstruction. I personally would have liked Thomas Wayne to only have appeared on the TV screen, and then we got the scene of them running out of the theater. That'd have been it. We learned that basically Penny had worked for the Waynes. She had a mental breakdown. She had delusions and had said that Arthur was Thomas's child, that Thomas was his father. There's a lot of fan theories now in here saying Thomas was covering it up. All the paperwork and documentation was fake to prove that it wasn't his. I think that's a little too far out there. I think it works better at the idea that mental illness ran in the family. Even though Arthur's adopted.
Is he?
That the mother's imprint of her behavior, and then with his head trauma, pushed him in that direction.
So just along that lines, I'm not saying it's true or anything, just with that part of the story alone, there's a couple of things that kind of make it ambiguous that it could actually be true. One, when Arthur's putting on his makeup before he kills Randall, he has a picture of his mother, and his mother was gorgeous when she was a young woman. And on the back of it, it says, "I love your smile, TW," signed Thomas Wayne. So there is a sense of a relationship there. Now, not saying that she didn't have mental problems, but if they did have a physical relationship and she got pregnant, he could have easily spun it. And what she does say is, his mother says that and I'm pretty positive it's in the bathroom after he reads her letters saying your son, is she talks about Thomas Wayne, and then she talks about how they would be viewed as a couple, and that they couldn't be a couple, and that they couldn't be a couple, that they couldn't acknowledge a pregnancy in public. And she says, and she just kind of says it like passing, that she signed some papers. So was it used, her condition used to sign these papers to legitimize a false adoption because of her condition? So there are some things that do kind of connect that could make it true.
I mean, it's there.
But,
even the age of Thomas Wayne being an older man, like in his mid-40s, and if you think about it, that means he could have had Arthur 20 at 30, 35.
I was gonna say, how old is the actor who played Thomas Wayne? Because he looks like he's in his 50s.
That's what I
Yeah.
said.
Which would easily make him having Arthur in his 20s. And how old is Frances Conroy?
Exactly.
She in her 50s, her 60s?
And then you could also argue that she worked for Thomas. They were friendly, because Thomas was younger. So I can't remember what Thomas's father's name was. I used to know it because I'm a nerd.
Jedediah.
Was it?
I don't know.
I know.
I used
Or
to
was
think-
Alan Wayne? Because I can't remember if Alan Wayne was his great-grandfather or the first Wayne of Gotham in Gates of Gotham, or if that was Thomas's dad. But I wish Phil would just magically pop up here with the third spot or the fourth spot and be like, Tyler, it was this.
Brett Cullen is age 63.
Dang. He looks good for 63.
Yeah, he looks 53.
It's Hollywood.
So
It's Hollywood. They have
I
amazing
like the
plastic
idea that the
surgeons.
Waynes are rich and busy, so they didn't have children until later in life. I think that's cool. That gives you more backstory of the Waynes being able to do things before they had Bruce.
And Frances Conroy is 65. So, boom.
Cougar.
Lines right up. She's
totally,
only 2 years older than him.
but so that works in the idea that that's one of those things that could work. But the picture, you could say she worked for him. They were friends. He said, you have a great smile, wrote it on her picture, Thomas Wayne. Kind of like signing a yearbook. Or, that instance where a girl is nice to you and says something and it's playful, and the next thing you know, you're like, she likes me. She wants to date me. She must be my girlfriend.
So let's think about
With her condition, that could be feasible too.
Exactly.
Like the majority of this movie, with him being the unreliable narrator, a lot of this movie is open to, all of it happening, none of it happening, how much did happen, how much is real, how much is fake.
So
or imagined.
On the back of that picture, though, it said "Love Your Smile, TW," and there's like a little heart there. So who's to say that she didn't just write it herself? Because
exactly,
I don't know about you, but I've never written a letter to a girl and put a little heart somewhere. But
what would be interesting is if what would be interesting to look at is to take a freeze frame of her letter to Thomas and like her signature, and take a freeze frame of that picture, because if they thought about this movie the way it seems like a lot of the movie had been thought out and pieced together, like if she wrote that, I would assume that they would have had the same person sign those, not Frances Conroy, because usually it's not the person who's playing it, it's some PA who's already written this stuff to be placed there. But they would have had the same person do that so that the handwritings match up.
I agree.
I think for let's say Arthur is his son, then it was a 20-something Thomas Wayne, in college, cocky as crap. This young woman, maybe a little bit older than him, a little bit older than him, pays him some mind. It's like a Mrs. Robinson type situation or whatever,
That's a lot older than him.
Hey, what?
Yeah.
Whatever.
You need a good 10, 15 years.
I'm gonna say, even if they did have a physical relationship and that's not his child, they had a physical relationship and he was legally adopted, not a false adoption, not Thomas's child, but they did have a physical relationship.
But
he was 20 something and rich, and the young woman who played her in the picture that Arthur had, she was a very attractive young woman. He did something if he had the chance.
right. And
So
and Tyler and I were saying this too. The Martha in this Joker movie, she looks old as crap, man. She looks like an old hack. And maybe he just likes older women. And it's interesting that they had Bruce much older. And Martha could have been like in her 40s or late 30s or something when she had Bruce. And it's interesting.
So that's the Waynes. We get probably the worst Alfred ever captured on film. The 8th version of Alfred.
A little too fat for me for Alfred.
I just, like I said, I wouldn't have liked to have seen Bruce or Alfred or any of that stuff. I just would have preferred Thomas on TV and kind of in this presence in the background. Even though the bathroom scene is great of Arthur confronting Thomas.
Agreed.
And then you have the Wayne busting out of the theater, fleeing, because that would have caught you off guard more. All of a sudden, you see the family coming out of the theater.
I agree with you.
Did it surprise you that we saw the murder of the Waynes?
Not really. Being that he ended up being a little more in the movie than I thought maybe he would be. And the fact that they brought in a young Bruce. But I did like the way that they were murdered, because it's another difference in the way they were murdered. But it does play along in the Batman mythos where he doesn't know who killed them, and there's no way to be able to find out who killed them. It was a long time before they decided to add Joe Chill in as the killer. So for them to have this guy in a mask come down the alley during a riot where nobody can be picked out, gun them down, and leave, like, that plays right into the Batman mythos that it's like that it was a random killing by somebody unidentifiable. And I mean, that's what drives him, having the killer unidentified, never being able to find out. That's the one thing that like continuously drives Batman. One thing I will say about this Joker, and I hadn't looked at it like you said before, like him telling the story to her, because I hate movies that don't. I hate movies that end and then it didn't happen.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Everything happened inside of your head. But if it was, say, him telling the story and to a certain degree, a number of facts had happened, things that were known, maybe the Wall Street guys were killed, he shot Murray on TV, he had a video, you know what I mean? Certain things are known, I had never thought about it. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it being in that light. But saying for the Joker, like being the sympathetic character. So the movie being told from his perspective, being the sympathetic character.
It would be like.
But I do want a Joker that I feel like. Now Brian will, so just block Brian out. I feel like Leto's Joker would be like, that Leto's Joker would be like the Joker who, I'm sorry. That the Leto's Joker would be like the Joker who enjoys the killing. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a sympathetic character. The Joker enjoys what he does and just kills. You know what I mean?
This movie, okay, so think about if you watched a movie that was just all the flashback scenes in the and it ended with him standing there holding his hair, laughing into the screen, and it cut to black. You would have a sympathetic Joker story, and you would be like, wow, I feel for this character. I understand. He was such a good guy till this happened. In a way, that's what this movie, in a way, is it's that story where, they're trying to tell us. Now, man, I'm trying not to ask this just yet. I'm holding off. So let's jump back. What scene do you feel is the most Joker-like scene in this movie? Bryan.
Yes.
Raise your hand like a good student.
Thank you, Professor. And we might both agree on this. It's where he's standing in the back during the show, and he's got the cigarette in his hand, and he's just kind of staring at Murray on the screen, and it's just so cold. It's so cold. It's so serious, and that's the only scene that I see pure and utter evil in that. And
see, to me, that scene right there is the turn where he decided that his going out wasn't going to be to kill himself in front of live TV. That's when he decided to flip that he was going to kill Murray on TV to prove his point. James.
The most Joker moment I feel in the movie is when he kills Randall. They come over. Randall's trying to get the story straight. He provided the gun. He doesn't necessarily know that Arthur had killed these, but he had provided the gun. They're interviewing clowns. So he comes over to kind of get his story straight. When he says that he's no longer taking his medication and he feels great, he feels better than he has in a long time, and then he brutally kills him, and then he scares Gary when he's walking by him, and Gary can't reach the lock, and then and then he goes and he unlocks the door, and then he opens it, and then he closes it again, and he says, You're Gary. And then he kisses him on the forehead, and he says, Go on, get out of here.
To me,
that is the most Joker scene in the movie.
I agree with you because he kills the one guy.
You won, okay? Right.
And then we have that tension, and he lets the other guy go. He's like, you go. He's like, you were good to me. You can go.
Yeah. And when he sits there in that pool of blood, he's totally calm, totally chill. What he did was not a big deal. Yeah, you won, James. You're right.
My favorite line of the film, though, is when, Arthur, we came over to see how... this is my favorite scene. I know it's horrible because of the murder, but just the context of the Joker, the characters, and what happens is, I think, great. He comes over and he's like, Arthur, we came over. We heard your mom died. He's like, yeah, I'm just celebrating. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what? I laughed out loud when he said, yeah, I'm celebrating.
They got a chuckle.
But to me,
that scene was the most uncomfortable, funny scene of the movie. Everything in it was funny. Everything in it was uncomfortable. And you're just like, is it okay to laugh? But it's still funny.
He's in the process of coloring his hair. And they come over, and that leads to, him, he has some pain on his face, but then it leads to him emerging as the makeup Joker. And there's subtle differences in his Joker makeup compared to his clown makeup from earlier. He doesn't outline his mouth in black like he did earlier in his act. We also didn't talk about
paints his nose. He doesn't have the red puffy nose.
When he's at the children's hospital dancing and his gun falls out. That was a very awkward situation.
Yeah.
I still laugh though. He picks the gun up. He hides it.
It's not. It's a prop, man. It's a prop for my act. That's oh my gosh. Never mind.
So
Stupid.
This is all building up to him going to the TV station where they're going to show his clip of his horrible stand-up that he had, where he had problems and couldn't make it work. Now, we know that every scene it seems that Arthur has a good time or people like him is in his head. The Murray scene, the stuff right there in the live when he tries to turn it around and Sophia's there. It seems like every time he's happy or having a good time, that's in his head, where people like him. So this is where he leaves. No, Brian, people like him.
That's subjective.
Well, my kids like you. They were happy you came over yesterday. So there you go.
Either kids are a good judge of character or kids don't know better.
They don't know.
Either or. Either or. It's ambiguous.
Arthur's heading down to the TV station. We have the dance. We have, the cops are coming after him. He's in full makeup. He shows up to the Murray show. And he talks about how it's not political. It's just, funny. He asked to be called Joker. He had been rehearsing at home, like how to come out. And he was going to shoot himself, practice, And I feel like this is all good. Like, this is kind of like Joker, on the train. I think it's Jokery. I think when he's in there, it's Jokery. When he goes out, it's very Jokery. But I feel like when he actually, all of a sudden gets serious and calm and starts talking about serious things, he's Arthur again and not the Joker. Right. So, when he shoots Murray, that's Arthur, not the Joker. If you feel me, because he makes good points, but I feel like in a lot of ways, at this point, if he was truly the Joker, he don't care anymore. His mind's gone. He has created another identity and has embraced it, and that's where he's at. So he don't even care about anything from the past anymore.
It's like, he says that he has nothing left to lose. So he's kind of on that last act before he becomes the Joker. So he kills Murray as Arthur because he's the last person to get back at who had made fun of him on television. Mm-hmm. So it's the last person, it's the last straw. After that, he's done. He has nothing left to lose. Whether he lives or dies, moving forward, he is the Joker. He is Joker after that. But that's the end of the movie.
Yep. So one, we know that Joker, Arthur, killed the 3 guys on the train. 2 were self-defense. He hunted the one guy down and basically murdered him. So there's 3. He kills his mom when he finds out what she had done and how she was towards him, what she let him suffer as a child. He kills Randall, kills Murray. And those are confirmed kills.
Yeah, he only fully he only confirmed kills 7 people in the film.
So, do you think, Brian, that he killed Sophia?
Yes, I do.
James?
I am still kind of undecided on that, if he actually did or not. I think it's possible. People point to the sirens and everything, but they live in a bad part of town. And watching it again, it sounds like the sirens come and then they fade out. Do they fade out because they drove past and it's just sirens? Did they place the sirens in there to make it, did he kill her or did he not? So,
Well,
I mean, I don't think there's enough evidence either way.
yeah.
I think it was kind of him trying to go there, and then he had a break. It's edited where it cuts back and we're revealed that all the Sophia stuff was in his mind. Maybe he was catching up to realize that it wasn't.
I think if he killed her, I think they would have had to give in more of a reason than their relationship being in his head. I mean, justifiably so, Joker would kill for that reason, but he's not, like we said, he's not Joker yet.
Right.
But
by this point, but he's not.
I think if they would have shown that she was like a terrible mother or an abusive mother, then he would have, because that would have hit him personally.
And then that makes him more of like a sympathetic hero, which again is his point of view. But
yeah.
So he's on the Murray show. He pulls the trigger. You know, he's in full makeup. We get the scene of him in the back of the car, police car, and he's driving through town. The Murray show is, aired live. And I told this to Bryan, is part of it right here is the music that kicks in says, "In the White Room," with black curtains.
At the station.
So in the White Room could be a tip that he's in the asylum now, because when the car is hit and basically he is freed, and then he's like put on, I mean, if I'm not getting metaphorical, but like he's sprawled out on the top of the police car, kind of sprawled out a little bit. They think he's dead, but then he spits blood and he comes back up. It's like he's reborn as the Joker, but at the same time, everyone's reveling and likes him. So it's that completely in his head. Did none of that happen? Because it's a scene, once again, where people are nice to him.
So as Tyler and I talked about this yesterday, so my wife, when I saw it the second time, my wife Jen goes up to me and says, did you get any new ideas and stuff? And I said, I'm still trying to figure out if he really ever became the Joker. And Jen says to me, well, yeah, because at the end, because he gets in that wreck from the cop car, they pull him out, and he's laying there like you think he might be dead. Then they cut to the scene of Bruce and the Waynes getting shot. When they die, he coughs up blood and is like, wakes up. And then he stands up, he takes the blood in his mouth, makes a smile, and dances. And Jen, who claims not to be a comic fan at all and whatever, she feels that's when he was born. And now I'm starting to think maybe it was when he shot Murray, because after he shot Murray, he did a real Joker thing where he shot him again, and then he shrugged, and then he walked off. Like, that's a Joker thing. So I still don't know, but
I think Jen's idea is great if it really happened. Like I said, but because I feel like in a way, everyone like around him and everything like that. Now, let me ask you this question for you guys.
sure.
When it cuts to him with his doctor, she calls him Arthur, right?
I don't remember her calling him anything. Like,
I think I'm not positive. I think so.
At the end of the movie?
Yeah, when she's trying to get his attention and she's talking to him. Does she call him Arthur?
I don't remember her calling him anything.
because I
think she does because he's laughing. He's holding his cigarette. He's just
because I want to say if she calls him Arthur and he acknowledges it, kind of feels like he's not fully Joker yet because he tries to make the declarative to Murray. Would you call me Joker? Like he's setting it up.
Yeah.
She's like, that name you gave me. But when he's in the hospital and she says, Arthur, you think he would have been like, that's not my name. That's not who I am. So.
Now I got to watch it the third time.
That's kind of the film in a nutshell. There's more dissection. We'll probably do a commentary on this one just for fun when it comes out. But let me ask you.
Fun.
I think the discussion is a fun point.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to the topic at hand of the Joker's one bad day philosophy. Arthur didn't have one bad day. Look at the Killing Joke. His wife dies.
He was never happy one day in his effing life.
Okay. He falls into the chemicals after the crime and everything. And so that's his one bad day. Arthur has every day as a bad day, building up to when he actually feels good about life. And him feeling good is what descends him into madness. So the whole Joker one bad day thing doesn't work in Arthur's story. Because if you wanted to say he had one bad day, it would have been when he was beaten and got the brain injury. But even then, he can't remember or didn't know about that. That sent him down this path.
Well, he used to think his life was a tragedy. Now he realizes it's a comedy.
Right, but it's not one day. It's every day. Because the whole, and I keep going back to the Killing Joke because it has that dual narrative of the past and, the present, and that's where the one bad day thing really stems from, is what he says. So, here comes the big questions. Is this a movie about the Joker? Bryan?
No.
James?
I'm paying for it?
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
Is this a movie about
Come back to me, buddy.
I'm here. Is this a movie about
Joker?
Oh, about Joker? No.
Do we ever really see the character of Joker? Or do we see parts, things that are the character of Joker?
I think there might be a couple of glimpses in the movie that are Joker, but no.
So the first time Bryan saw this, he stopped and he said, it really wasn't a Joker movie. And I said, oh, so it's kind of like if the movie was Batman Begins, but it stopped when at the docks when he says, "Where are you?" and Batman says, "Here." If it cut to black right there, that's what this movie is. All set up, all teased, and then when you're ready for the payoff, it's gone.
Yeah,
and
it's a serious movie, just wrapped in the name to add to the comic book genre.
Does it work as a Joker movie? Yes and no.
I kind
no, if you take it straight. If you watch it straight and you're looking for it to be the definitive origin Joker story, because we've talked about how we accept multiple things on print, but when we watch a film, we want the definitive version of these characters. But yes, if you think about the Joker sitting in a room telling his story, much like in the Killing Joke flashbacks, and it's painting him as this picture. But like I said at the beginning, is just enough Joker stuff in there to be like, oh, I could see this as a version of the character. But there's just enough not that you could be like, this is just a clown who goes crazy. But nobody wants to see that.
I kind of took it as, if you're gonna say it's any bit of a Joker thing, I would say it's Joker's greatest hits. The greatest Joker stories ever told, because this movie, it wasn't really a Joker movie, but what Joker things it had, it took the best parts of every story that was ever told to Joker.
But the Joker uses more of his gimmick in what he does. I mean, they keep stripping that more out of the comic, but where's the laughing gas, the Joker gas, the acid in the buzzer, some of the stuff that's like humorous and where he flips the script and it really plays into his gag, his pranks, his what's the word? Gimmick. This was all gun violence. He bashed the guy's head in too and stabbed him, but most everything else was all gun violence. And I feel like when Arthur gives his speech to Murray, that's kind of the point of the film of what they're saying about mental illness. And then it's like if the Joker, have you any of you guys read White Knight?
Not yet.
No.
Where basically Joker captured, given a new experimental drug, and he turns back into Jack Napier and becomes like the White Knight of Gotham and starts cleaning up the city and doing all this great good things and starts to paint Batman bad through the eyes of the media, the press, and Batman's so enraged that now the Joker is this rehabilitated like hero because of this medication. And I think about if this plays into that, where if you just had the right medicine for the mentally ill, would they all be okay? Maybe, but the problem is when you take your medication, it's not in the story, but the idea that Arthur was so thin and tired medication, and he was never happy because it just made him nothing. But by not having his medication, he was able to feel something, and even though those feelings we might interpret as negative or the actions that come with those as bad, he was happy and embracing it because that's now who he was. So, I think it's a good movie. I want to say great, but I feel like I've heard too many people talk about the way it seemed to have taken too much from Martin Scorsese films to make it feel like it's really great on its own. But I really think there's a lot of effort and things that were put into it. I'd like to watch it a couple more times. I wanted to like it more, but I still worried. So it works as a great origin film for the Joker if you watch it with the right lens, knowing that the Joker, this could be the Joker. I hate when there was a quote by Todd Phillips. He said that this Joker might not be the real Joker, but who inspires the real Joker, which pisses me off, kind of like they try to do with Jerome on Gotham, but that changed over time. So it's one of those movies that we're going to be talking about for a while. So was Joaquin Phoenix the Joker? Was he a good Joker? No. He was a really good Arthur Fleck. He had a couple scenes that were Joker-y. Now I feel like this film sets up a character that I want to see. Like, part of me would love to see this Arthur break out of Arkham and see what he would do. But would Arthur be a mastermind? Or, what's the context of this? If it was all him just telling a story, do we even know the real Arthur? That could be a unique story. But then would that discredit the movie that we have? I don't know.
Yeah, the movie stands alone. I don't think it needs a sequel or to be connected to anything. It's a great art piece in its own. And, like I said at the beginning, great cinematography, great direction, great performances, acting, score. As a art film, basically, it's a really good film, and I think it should just stand alone. Would I have liked to see Joaquin Phoenix? I mean, he's a great actor. Would I have liked to see him as a Joker, like in a Heath Ledger role, or Leto's Suicide Squad role or something? Yeah, he probably would have done great. But
I agree. I feel like if he
That's
would have
not
got another story, another film, or they had just moved some of this up to
if he
where
would have been connected to a larger narrative, but
You
his
know,
is
that-
very narrow.
he had donned the clown prince of crime type moniker and done maybe some other things other than just murder people, like rob somebody, robbed a bank as a clown or something, and kind of descended. I think there would have been more like, oh, that's the Joker coming. But final thoughts, Brian, before we head off here. We're running long on time.
So I want this movie to be a standalone movie, but it's still not a joke. It's still not the Joker to me. It was just a really good mental health movie. If it is a standalone movie, I really wish they didn't put in the Wayne murder in there, because now you got me thinking: is this going to end up not being a standalone movie? Is it going to end up being the prequel to Matt Reeves' Batman with Robert Pattinson? And like, that is the origin right there. And then years down the road, we're going to get someone be the Joker again, and was inspired by Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. And Bruce is going to be terrified because all he thinks about is that clown that killed his parents. And that might be a whole different podcast and a whole different story. But I don't want that to happen. I want this to be its own thing. It's done. Because I'm sick and tired of so many different Joker versions. In my lifetime, I've had Jack Nicholson. I've had Mark Hamill, the greatest ever. I've had Troy Baker. I've had Cameron Montague.
I don't mind it different in animation. We got Nicholson. Think about this. We had Nicholson in 89, Ledger in 08. Now think since 08. Okay. We had Leto in 16, but in between there and up until this year, we had the filtered, changing, evolving Jeremiah concept Joker on Gotham. And then now in 19, we have Phoenix. So we had 2016, we had Leto. 2019, we have Phoenix. Like, we're getting a lot of content in a short period of time. A lot of changes in a short period of time. More saturation. And like I was pointing out to you, it's like, they're like, oh, we tried this. Okay, we did this. Now let's reboot again. Or we're going to do the over here as a standalone. And that's been kind of people's issue with Matt Reeves as the Batman, because we were promised so much. And then now it's like, oh, it's going to be its own thing, standalone. We're already back to that.
But I'm sick of it. Like, I'm just, it's like Spider-Man. I'm sick of every couple years just getting a new Spider-Man. I'm sick of seeing a new Joker. Like, I didn't like Jared Leto's Joker. But if he would have had another movie, an actual interaction with Batman, maybe I would have liked it. Like, maybe we could have got something. So, in a nutshell, if we're going to get more Joaquin Phoenix, then let's get more of it. If we're going to do a new person to be Joker, then give me the real Joker. That's all. And that's life.
Look up in the sky.
If you're an Amazon shopper, just remember you can go to southgatemediagroup.com. There's a portal, log into Amazon, and you'll shop into your account just regular, but it also helps keep Southgate running.